In Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro received Donald Trump's special envoy and proposed a zero agenda with the U.S. government. In Haiti, a United Nations delegation headed by Undersecretary General Miroslav Janka arrived in Port-au-Prince to help find a political solution to the current crisis. And in Palestine, Israel released 183 Palestinian prisoners illegally detained since October 2023. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, received Donald Trump's special envoy and proposed a zero agenda with the U.S. government. The Venezuelan president received Richard Grenell in response to the request of President Trump, who has proposed seeking a way to resume relations between both nations. President Maduro proposed a zero agenda with the purpose of fine-tuning details and reviewing what has been developed in the last few years regarding bilateral relations. Let us remember that the Venezuelan head of state has emphasized that he is open to dialogue with the United States as long as it is respectful, public, and open, where consensual agreements are reached and no imposition is sought in any way. President Maduro stated that the meeting was positive, emphasizing that Venezuela will always practice peace diplomacy.
Today we also received the visit of a special envoy of the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. We have already issued an explanatory communiqué. Ambassador Richard Green came and had a good conversation with the peace envoy coordinator of Venezuela, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, with the Vice President of the Republic, and then, in Office 1 of the Presidential Palace of Miraflores, we had a frank and open direct conversation.
Y luego tuvimos en el despacho 1 del Palacio Presidencial de Miraflores una conversación franca, directa, abierta. Puedo decir que fue positiva.
I can say that it was positive. We practice the Bolivarian diplomacy of peace. And whoever wants to talk, we will always talk, and whoever knocks on the door, we will always open it.
Siempre hablaremos. Y el que toque la puerta, siempre le abriremos.
Also in Venezuela, the Viva Piedad exhibition in honor of the life and work of Colombian Senator Piedad Córdoba concluded in the city of Caracas. During the event, the attendees highlighted the legacy of the Colombian human rights activists. The event was headed by the Minister of Women, Johanna Carrillo, and the President of teleSUR, Patricia Villegas, who highlighted Piedad's commitment to Latin American social causes and her eternal bond with Venezuela and the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, Hugo Chavez Frias. And in Brazil on Saturday, gasoline, ethanol, and diesel prices went up to adjust to international averages. According to Brazil's major oil company, Petrobras, the price increase is due to the market's need to reduce the gap with international fuel prices, which stood at 17%. For these types of fuels, the average readjustment was of an extra 1.7 US cents per liter, increasing their average value by 20.15 US cents. In the case of gasoline and ethanol, the increase was prompted by an increase in the tax on circulation of goods and services. Meanwhile, diesel prices were subjected to two readjustments totaling an extra 3.76 cents per liter. And a United Nations delegation headed by Undersecretary General Miroslav Janka arrived in Haiti. Prime Minister Alex Didier received the diplomats in Port-au-Prince, where they expressed their agreement on the need to call for elections. After unsuccessfully trying solutions by force with the sending of security elements from several countries, they are analyzing a political solution to a crisis that, according to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner, leaves 13 Haitians dead every day due to violence. The organization also states that the number of internally displaced people has doubled in just 6 months. Meanwhile, in the Dominican Republic, the National Council of Traders and Businessmen warned about the losses of the productive sector following blackouts of up to 18 straight hours. The institution reported that last October, more than 14,000 members of the dairy products industry reported losses valued at more than $2.3 million. In this regard, the Corporation of State-Owned Electric Companies assured that the losses in the electric system are doubled due to the lack of investment and maintenance in the distribution companies. And in Panama, on Saturday, construction workers' unions took to the streets of the capital to defend the country's sovereignty and autonomy over the Panama Canal. Scores of protesters rejected the intentions of the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump of regaining control of the canal, and they also objected to a visit by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who on Sunday, February 2nd, will meet with the Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino. Demonstrators also rejected the bill to modify the organic law that governs the Solidarity Social Security Fund and demanded increased labor benefits. Also in Panama, the Ministry of Agricultural Development confirmed a new case of bird flu in the western province of Chiriquí. The case was identified in a backyard farm in the El Flor community in the Dolega district. It was reported that the case was isolated and controlled. Still, they proceeded to the total depopulation of the site and the burial of the birds. As part of the preventive measures, the authorities established a quarantine in the farm and nearby areas to avoid the spread and prohibited cockfighting in a perimeter of 10 kilometers around the affected area, while they will keep surveillance over the next 6 months to verify the presence or absence of the disease. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Saturday, Israel released 183 Palestinian prisoners illegally detained since October 2023. The prisoners who had been held in a prison in Ofer in the occupied West Bank were handed over to the International Red Cross. The prisoners' release took place as soon as Hamas handed over 3 Israeli hostages as part of the ceasefire agreement reached in Qatar by the Palestinian resistance and Israel. According to medical authorities, some of the released prisoners will travel to Gaza to be reunited with their families, but others will be transferred to a hospital in the city of Ramallah due to their deteriorating health. And on Saturday, Gaza's health ministry announced that a group of 50 sick and wounded patients, mostly children, and their attendants were taken into Egypt for medical treatment. The patients went through the Rafah border crossing, reopened for the first time in 9 months, amid a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Many of the patients are suffering from chronic diseases, including cancer, and have been unable to get treatment during Israel's 15-month war. A total of 400 Palestinians will be allowed to leave Gaza as part of a January 19th ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel. The reopening of the Rafah crossing is a significant breakthrough. Israel agreed to reopen it after Hamas released the last living female captives in Gaza in exchange for more than 180 Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue to lay siege to towns and refugee camps in the West Bank. Palestinian authorities denounced that Tel Aviv troops broke into several Palestinian residential areas with bulldozers and other machinery in order to destroy homes in Al-Dam and at the eastern entrance to the town. Authorities added that the Israeli occupation razed the streets of the government hospital in Jenin. Health sources announced that more than 19 Palestinians were killed after the incursion into Jenin, while dozens were wounded. Israeli occupation forces continue harassing Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian authorities say Israeli authorities blocked the distribution of Palestinian textbooks to students in Al-Aqsa schools near the old city of Jerusalem. They also confirmed that a teacher was arrested on charges of distributing texts with Palestinian content. Also, occupation forces broke into the south of Nablus, where they forced shopkeepers to close their stores, causing clashes with citizens. Reportedly, Israeli occupation forces and settlers often break into Palestinian cities to harass citizens and provoke unrest among the population. Over the last 24 hours, Israeli occupation forces have killed at least 27 civilians in attacks on the Gaza Strip. According to medical sources, these actions also left around 8 wounded. However, both figures could rise since many of the victims remain trapped under the rubble of infrastructure either damaged or destroyed by the Israeli bombardments. According to the latest health report, at least 47,487 Palestinians have been killed and 111,588 injured, mostly women and children, since October 7, 2023. And the World Health Organization reiterated the need to evacuate some 15,000 Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to receive urgent medical treatment abroad. WHO said the evacuation is an emergency measure that should be implemented as soon as possible, given that out of the 36 hospitals in the Gaza Strip, at present, only 18 are partially operating. The head of the World Health Organization celebrated Saturday the evacuation of 50 patients, which is the first medical evacuation since the start of the latest ceasefire and the first one through the Rafah crossing since its closure in May 2024. However, WHO denounces slow progress in this regard, for many of those injured by Israeli bombardment require emergency treatment. And in Syria, an extremist gang reportedly killed at least 10 civilians in northern Hama province. An extremist group stormed the village of Arsa and forced citizens out of their homes, then shot them and fled the scene. According to local media, general security forces surrounded the village in search of the hooded gunmen who committed these crimes, and during the operation managed to arrest 3 of them. Human rights organizations said the number of civilians killed by extremist gangs since the beginning of 2025 amounts to more than 100 victims. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break? Don't go away. Welcome back. The World Health Organization announced efforts to support Uganda's health authorities in containing the spread of the so-called Sudan virus in the country. The UN agency announced the allocation of $1 million from its emergency contingency fund to support Uganda's emergency response efforts. The WHO also said it is preparing a shipment of medical supplies to be delivered to the Ugandan government. Following the confirmation of the death of 1 person from the virus who had been in contact with at least 45 people, an epidemiological fence has been set up in the city of Kampala. And Southern African development community leaders agreed Friday to keep peacekeeping troops in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo due to increased tensions. The group's chairman, Emerson Mnangagwa, called for bold and decisive measures to increase the capacity of the peacekeeping forces after extremist groups supported by Rwanda increased their hold in the east of the country. The group's military mission has suffered heavy losses as rebels say they will take the conflict to the country's capital, Kinshasa. In this regard, the Congolese president has called for a massive military mobilization to resist the armed groups. In this context, the World Food Programme reported that food and water shortages in the Democratic Republic of the Congo are threatening the lives of thousands of people fleeing the violence crisis in the country. Basic services are reported to be partially paralyzed in the city of Goma, while refugee camps have been evacuated due to the rebel advance. The offensive by armed groups has forced hundreds of people to flee their homes and has left thousands of people injured. The Russian government announced that it will seek alternatives so that the Transnistrian region of Moldova, a border area with Ukraine, can receive gas through alternative routes and thus resolve the current crisis. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova assured that the competent authorities are working to send humanitarian gas supplies. Zakharova also said that she expects a constructive approach from all sides to urgently resolve the crisis with the energy supply of Transnistria. Moldova has found itself in a gas crisis due to Ukraine's ban on the transit of Russian gas through its territory and Moldova's refusal to pay debts to Moscow, which are estimated at $709 million. Meanwhile, in South Korea on Saturday, simultaneous marches took place in Seoul, the capital, to show their support or rejection on the arrest of former President Yoon Suk-yeol. There is an ongoing political crisis in South Korea since President Yoon Suk-yeol was ousted by the parliamentary opposition after declaring martial law, which he claimed was an act to save democracy. Hundreds of citizens demonstrated in support of the president and urged the Constitutional Court to dismiss the case against him and to set him free. But there was another group of citizens who expressed their rejection to the former president and demanded he be impeached and punished for decreeing martial law December 2024.
For the freedom of our country, I support President Yoon Suk-yeol, who secures liberal democracy. I believe that if the president's approval rating surpasses 60 to 70%, all the wrongs in this country will be corrected, the fraudulent elections will be rectified, impeachment will be dismissed, and this country will become new and great again.
Those who caused the rebellion, including the leader, have not yet received proper punishment or trial. I hope that the judicial authorities will swiftly address this issue and bring an end to the rebellion. Once the situation ends, I hope that the forces of rebellion will be sidelined, and the remaining politicians, along with the civil society, unite to discuss how to rebuild crumbled South Korea.
At this, we have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.